Hi, so friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Tolu. In today's tutorial, I'll be taking you through how to master the art of drafting a precise pant pattern. In this session, I'll share a step-by-step technique that will help you achieve a flawless fit every time. Okay, the first thing is to decide where you want the waistline to be, whether high, mid, or low, since it serves as the primary anchor that sets the reference for all your vertical measurements. So step one is to draw the waistline, and after drawing it out, label it so you don't get confused later on. Now we move to step two, which is to mark out all your vertical measurements on your drafting paper, and we're starting from the hip line. This is the vertical distance from the waist to the hip line, and for the purpose of this tutorial I'm using 10 inches for the hip line. You also are ensured to label. Then we move to the crotch depth. This is the vertical distance from the waist to the crotch level when sitting, and the crotch depth we are using here is 11 inches. So from my waist, I'm just going to mark out 11 inches downwards. And while I was labeling, I wrote crotch height instead of crotch depth. Please, that's a mistake. I wanted to write crotch depth, please. So we move to the thigh line, and it's the vertical distance from waist to the thigh. It is usually 2 to 3 inches below your crotch depth, but I'm using 3 inches here. But for a shorter person, I would advise you use 2 inches. So we'll move to the knee line, which is the vertical distance from waist to knee, and I'm using 23 inches here. The waistline, I'm just going to mark out 23 inches downwards and label it. Next vertical measurement is your ankle length, that is from waist to ankle. But this time around, you measure to your heel. Showing the entire length helps you to achieve balanced proportion and a better fit. The measurement I'm using here is 42. So for my waist, mark out 42 downwards and also label. The last thing there is your hem allowance. You can choose to use whatever you want to use, but I'm using 2 inches there. And that is that about imputing all your vertical measurements. The next thing is to move to imputing the round measurements. The formula for step 3 is hip divided by 4 plus 0.25 inches, which is for ease allowance. And the hip measurement I'm using here is 48 inches. So 48 divided by 4 plus 0.25 give me 12.25. I'm going to mark out that value on my crotch height, my hip, and on the waistline. Then I connect all lines using a straight ruler. But then we don't need this line straight, we need it slant so it can relax on the bodies. So from the waist part, I'm going to mark out 0.25 inwards and connect it to the crotch height. Implementing this is one of the steps that helps eradicate the crotch bulging out. So this slant line is my new crotch line. Then we move to the waistline. Our front waistline is not straight, it is usually curved. So in order to achieve that, mark 0.5 inches downwards on the waistline and connect it to the starting point there using a curved ruler. On that line, you're going to mark out your waist measurement, and the formula is waist divided by 4 plus 1 inch for that allowance. Then you mark out the value you have on that waistline. Make sure your tape measure is not straight but a bit round. Follow the curved line. The next thing is to connect that waist measurement to the hip. But before you do that, on your hip, mark out 1 inches upwards so that the curve stops there. This helps to eradicate the fabric around the hip area from bulging out. This works not only for pants, but for dresses and also skirts. Now we move to the crotch extension, which is hip divided by 20 plus 0.25 inches for ease allowance. And for my hip, I got 2.65, which is around 2.7. So from the crotch line there, I mark out 2.7 outwards. And then you use a French curve to connect it to your crotch line. I just found out this formula and I tried it for two different measurements and it worked perfectly. Now we move to out the grain line, and that is all the measurements you have on your crotch depth there horizontally divide by 2, which is your hip plus your crotch extension. Mine there is 15 divided by 2 gives me 7.5. So I'm going to mark out the 7.5 on the crotch depth there and then mark it out on the waistline. Put my tape measure on the beginning of the paper, mark it out on the knee line, same thing 7.5, and also on your ankle length. Then you connect with a straight line. Now this serves as a guide for implementing the other measurements. Now move on to step 7, which is your thigh. Divide by 4 and then mark out the value on both sides of the thigh line. Mine there is 27, so I'm going to mark out 7 on both sides of the thigh line. The next step is your round knee, and the formula is your round knee divided by 4. The measurement I have there is 22, so 22 divided by 4 is 5.5. I'm going to mark out 5.5 on both sides of the knee line. Next, we move to the ankle. But this time around, the formula is the ankle divided by 4 minus 0.5. So I'm going to mark out my 2.5 there on both sides of the ankle length and then connect all lines. From the crotch depth to your knee, use the curve ruler and place it the way I'm placing it. But on the other side, you are going to mark down 1 inch below the crotch depth and then connect the curve to that point. Then you use a straight ruler from the knee down to the ankle length. Okay, then move to the waist dart. On your green line, you're just going to mark out your dart length. I'm using 4 inches there. And on both sides of your green line, mark out 0.5 inches and then connect to end point of the dart. And here we have it. This is our front pant pattern. Very easy, isn't it? If you've gotten to this point, please I appreciate your like, your share, and your subscription, so this video can also get to others. Now we move to the back pattern. Before pinning the front pattern on your drafting paper, leave few inches, like 2 inches by the side, and you can leave about 5 inches at the upper part because we're going to add other measurements later on. For the first step on the drafting paper, you're going to extend your ankle line, your knee line, your thigh line, and ½ inch below your crotch depth. Once you're done with that, you add 1 inch to both sides of your ankle. You also add 1 inch to both sides of your knee and 1 inch to the hip side of your thigh. Then you connect all lines. From your knee to your ankle, you use a straight ruler, but from the knee to your thigh, or thigh to knee, sorry, you use the curve ruler. Then we move to the back crotch extension, which is hip over 20. Whatever value you get, you put it on the crotch line for the front and mark it out. Then mark out 0.5 inch upward, as you can see there. That 0.5 inch is standard for all measurements. Next, on the waistline of the crotch depth there, you mark out 0.5 inch upwards and connect it to the start point of the waistline. Now for the starting point of the back waistline, you measure your front crotch to the green line and divide it by 2. Mine is 2.25. Now I'm going to extend that line upwards. The formula for that is hip divided by 20 minus 0.5. Whatever value you get, you mark it out upwards, not from your front waist pattern, but from that line. And then you connect it with your ruler Then you connect all dots. Better still, on this part, you use the curve ruler. And that's how simple it is to achieve your back crotch. Just follow the formulas. Next is to connect the starting point of your crotch to your knee. Next is to measure the waistline. In order to achieve that, you're going to mark out that line first, and then you use a curved ruler to connect it down to the front waistline, like you see me doing. Then you mark out whatever you have on your front waist pattern. What I have there is 10 inches. I'm just going to follow that curve and mark out 10 inches and connect it down to the tie line there. Next is the waist dart of the back pattern. You need to measure whatever you have there on your back waist. Divide it by 2. The line of your waist to be slant instead of straight because our crotch is slant, not straight. When you measure the length I'm using there is 5.5, and then on both sides of that line, mark out ½ inch and then connect it to the end point of the dart there. At this point, you take out your front pattern because you don't need it any longer. Then you draw out your ankle length, add your hem allowance before you start cutting. Hold your hem allowance in. Remember to do that before you start cutting. Now, this is the point where we decide the length of the waistband. Whatever you want, you mark it downwards on your waistline and then you use your curved ruler to connect it. Remember, the waistline is curved. Then you'd also do the same thing to your back pattern. Mark that same length you use for your waistband, same thing on your back band, and then rule with the curved ruler. For the pocket opening, I use 2 inches by 6 inches. That's what I use most times, and then use a French curve to connect the line. Next is to cut out the pocket lining. The depth is just going to be from my waist to the crotch depth. The width is from the side to the green line, and then cut it out. This you're going to cut out 4 times. But then 2 pieces, we have pocket opening. Now we move to cutting the waistband. For this, you're going to cut it after you are done sewing all your trousers together. I mean the fabric. Then you fold it into 2, pin it, and measure what you have on the waist. What I'm using here is 30, as for the example, and then you mark out the midpoint of 15 again. What I have is 7.5. Now on that point for 15, you're going to mark out 1.25 inches upwards. It is standard, and then connect it to the midpoint there. Next is to determine whatever you want to use for your band length. I'm using 1.5, so I'm going to mark out 1.5 on those lines. From the midpoint to the other point, I'm going to use the ruler. In aspect of the curved part, I'm going to use the curved ruler to connect both lines. Then at the edge of this point, you're going to use your ruler to straighten it because it's usually a bit slant, so just straighten that point. And there you have it. You cut it out. And that's all about our pants pattern. But then while cutting on your pattern, remember to add ½ inch round. The only point where you don't add ½ inch is just at the down part because you've already added hemming allowance. Now, if you find this video helpful, like, share, and please subscribe. I'll also be in the comment section to reply any questions you have. But there's something I'd like to tell you. If you watch video once, I would advise you watch it second time, and the second time you bring out your book and your pen, write down the steps accordingly. This will help you while drafting your pattern. Okay, bye for now and see you in my next video. Thank you for watching.